In 1963, NHRA officials stormed a Chevrolet garage, seized an engine, and declared it illegal. Not for cheating, not for drugs, but for being too powerful. This is the story of the 409W engine, Chevy's outlawed masterpiece, and the dark secrets that killed it. The Chevrolet 409W engine wasn't just a triumph of engineering. It was a magnet for controversy, tragedy, and corporate sabotage. Behind its roaring success lay dark stories of betrayal, danger, and a legacy stained by blood and politics. Why was this engine called a coffin on wheels? And what forced Chevrolet to kill its own creation? Here's the untold darkness behind the 409. In 1961, born from the horsepower wars, this 6.7-liter Fight 8 was created at a time when Chevrolet was obsessed with winning, and this engine was nothing but innovation ahead of its time. Led by Ed Cole, Chevrolet's chief engineer, later GM president, who pioneered the W block with a radical 11-degree valve angle. Built at GM's Flint plant in Michigan, the same facility that birthed the Corvair and later the small block V8. Interviews with retired Chevy mechanics reveal the 409 was notoriously hard to tune. The dual quads? Beautiful when they worked, but a nightmare if the sync was off. Why was this engine called the 409W? The answer lies in its unique design, a wide-angle valve setup that made it stand out from the crowd. This powerful engine was Chevrolet's bold answer to the muscle car craze, engineered to pack a punch on both the street and the track. With a radical W-shaped block, it breathed fire. But rivals cried foul. Was it too good? The 409 V8, which was featured in their full-size Impala lineup. But why take such a big risk with a massive, untested engine? Simple. Chevy wanted to give performance junkies a taste of raw, untamed power. And they did just that. By 1962, the 409 had made its mark on the muscle car scene. The base version of the engine already cranked out 360 horsepower thanks to its single Carter AFB carburetor. But Chevrolet didn't stop there. They quickly pushed the power to 380 horsepower, proving they were all about going bigger and bolder. With a 6.7-liter or 409 cubic inch V8, this engine wasn't just about horsepower. It was all about dominating with a massive 400 pound-foot of torque. The 409 came in two versions. The 409/360, the base model, which delivered 360 horsepower at 5,400 RPM and 400 pound-ft of torque, and the more powerful 409/380, which cranked out 380 horsepower and still kept that impressive 400 pound-foot of torque. But Chevrolet wasn't done yet. In 1963, they launched the 409/400, a true monster that pushed power up to an astounding 400 horsepower while maintaining that 400 pound-foot of torque. The Chevrolet 409W engine earned several colorful nicknames during its heyday, reflecting its reputation, design, and cultural impact. Here are the most notable ones. The Beast. Mechanics and racers coined this nickname due to the engine's raw, untamed power and its notorious difficulty to tune. The dual four-barrel carburetors required precise synchronization, and its high compression ratios made it a handful for amateur builders. You didn't tame the beast, you just held on and prayed. The Impaler, earned by the 409-powered Impala SS, which dominated drag strips and street races. The name played on the car's model, Impala, and its ability to humiliate rivals like Ford's 406 and Pontiac's 421. Don Nicholson's 1962 NHRA Winter Nationals win cemented this nickname. W motor, derived from its unique W-shaped combustion chamber, not wide, a design quirk of Ed Cole's engineering team. Enthusiasts and factory literature often used this technical shorthand. The W confused many. It actually referenced the valve angle layout, not the block shape. The Beach Boys bomb. immortalized by the Beach Boys' 1962 hit 409, which glorified the engine's power. The song turned the 409 into a pop culture icon, even though the band later admitted they preferred Fords. The song's engine-revving sounds were recorded using a 409-powered Impala owned by Brian Wilson's cousin. WidowMaker, a darker nickname used by NHRA officials and critics who claim the engine's power-to-weight ratio in lightweight cars like the Biscayne made it unstable at high speeds. The band amplified this reputation. Chevy fans argue this was Ford/Pontiac propaganda to justify the NHRA's restrictions. The Canadian Ghost. After GM discontinued the 409 in the U.S., Canadian Pontiacs like the Parisian and Grand Parisian kept it alive under names like Superflame 409. Enthusiasts in the U.S. smuggled these cars across the border, dubbing them ghosts of Chevy's band legacy. Z11 Secret Son. The rare Z11 427 variant, a bored and stroked 409, was nicknamed the Chevy that never was, due to its limited production and GM's efforts to downplay its existence after the racing ban. Each moniker tells a story. The Beast, raw power and mechanical rebellion. Widowmaker, corporate sabotage and rivalry. Beach Boys bomb, cultural immortality versus corporate abandonment. The 409's nicknames reveal why it's still debated today. Was it a hero or a hazard? Let us know in the comments. The W engine was built with a unique 11-degree valve angle, improving airflow and ultimately improving efficiency and performance. However, that was not the most powerful version of this engine. The lifter cam version of the 409 engine provided even more power, with the top model reaching a mind-blowing 425 horsepower. It had a high compression ratio of 11.25 to 1, solid lifters, and twin 4-barrel carburetors. This setup was built to maximize performance, making sure the 409 could compete with the best engines available. The NHRA ban. Too fast to exist. 1963. NHRA rulebook changes. The 409's dominance led to draconian rules targeting Chevy. Cars with 409s were slapped with weight penalties up to 4,300 pounds and carburetor restrictor plates neutering their speed. Ford and Chrysler lobbied heavily for these changes. Sabotage accusations. Racers like Dick Harrell claimed NHRA officials deliberately disqualified 409 cars for minor infractions. In 1963, the Thompson Chevrolet team was banned from the U.S. Nationals for illegal cylinder heads, a charge fans called fabricated. NHRA didn't just ban the 409, they tried to erase it. The price tag of the Chevrolet 409 engine varied depending on the model. But one thing was clear. It wasn't a cheap option. The 409 engine option on the Chevrolet Impala was priced at around $500. But in return, buyers were getting an engine that could rival the best in racing. To put things into perspective, the Chevrolet Corvette at the time could be had with a 283 V8 engine, which was powerful, but nothing like the 409. However, even with its premium price, enthusiasts flocked to buy the 409, eager to experience its thrilling power on the road. Even though this was a very superior engine, it had some very fierce competition from companies like Ford and Pontiac. Ford offered the 406 engine, which had a similar displacement but wasn't as high performance as the 409. The 406 was good, but couldn't match the 409's top-end power. And Pontiac's 421 engine was formidable and could hold its ground, but Chevrolet's 409 often outperformed it in drag races and high-speed runs. In 1962, Don Nicholson's 409 Impala shredded the strip, clocking 13.7-second quarters. NHRA took notes, and so did GM's lawyers. GM's 1963 racing ban pulled the plug. No factory support, no upgrades. The 409 was left to die, but not before one last hurrah. Meet the Z11, Chevy's secret 427 cubic inch weapon. Unofficially pushing 500 horsepower, it was a drag strip assassin. Too bad NASCAR banned it on sight. The 409W engine had a clear advantage in terms of straight-line speed and the ability to win races, especially when you look at the power-to-weight ratio in cars like the Chevrolet Impala. But here's the burning question. Why did its competitors so fear this engine that it was ultimately banned? Was it simply too powerful, or were there other reasons at play? As we know, not all good things last forever. And the Chevrolet 409 wasn't immune to the forces working behind the scenes. The engine's sheer power made it extremely successful on the racetrack, but it also made it dangerous. The 409 engine was banned primarily due to its incredible performance and the fact that it posed a challenge to the automobile industry's standards at the time. The National Hot Rod Association and other racing associations saw the 409 as too powerful, and it started to be viewed as unfair, making it more difficult for other manufacturers to compete on a level playing field. But what made it so dominant wasn't just the performance on the streets. It was its ability to adapt in a variety of conditions, including drag racing, where it regularly beat competitors. One of the most famous cars equipped with the Chevrolet 409 was the 1961 Chevrolet Impala SS. This car, with its high-output 409 engine, became synonymous with muscle car culture. The Impala SS became a favorite of racers and enthusiasts who sought to conquer the streets with the unbeatable combination of power and style. Another famous car was the Chevrolet Biscayne, which also offered the 409 engine. While the Biscayne was a more family-oriented car, the 409 engine transformed it into a powerhouse on the streets. The WidowMaker reputation. The 409's torque made it a handful for inexperienced drivers. In 1962, a Los Angeles street race ended in disaster when a 409-powered Biscayne flipped at 110 miles per hour, killing 2 teens. Newspapers dubbed it the WidowMaker, and Chevy dealerships faced lawsuits. In 1964, amateur racer Jim Clark lost control of his 409 Impala during a qualifying run, crashing into a crowd. The incident fueled calls for the engine's ban. Chevy quietly pulled 409 ads after the crashes, but the nickname stuck. By 1964, the Chevrolet 409 engine mostly carried over from the previous year with no major changes. However, a big shift happened when the 425 horsepower version was discontinued towards the end of that production year, marking the start of the engine's decline. In 1965, Chevy offered just the 340-horse and 400-horse variants of the 409, and by mid-year, the 409 was completely phased out, replaced by the new 396 V8. This transition marked the dawn of a new era in muscle car power, with the 409 slowly being seen as outdated compared to the newer, more advanced engines. Over its 5-year run from 1961 to 1965, more than 15,000 Chevrolet 409 V8 engines